happened to save kidnapped heiress Chloe Whitmore. To repay me, the Whitmore matriarch gave me two choices. Marry her favorite granddaughter, Chloe Whitmore, or take a cool 100 million. I chose the money on the spot. Then I booked the first flight out of the country. I just wanted out. Away from Chloe Whitmore, the heiress I saved. Because I had been reborn. In my last life, after I saved Chloe from the kidnappers, I worked 5 jobs a day to keep her pampered like a princess. But once she was found, she banned anyone from mentioning those ugly days. Mrs. Whitmore asked what I wanted for saving her family. Like an idiot, I said I wanted to marry Chloe. I wanted to care for her forever. But I did not know, from the day she returned to the Whitmores, Chloe had fallen for Sebastian Kingsley, the capital elite's prince. After we married, she was ice cold to me. Even after holding my hand, she would rush off to wash it clean. Later, she got pregnant. To keep her true love from being the other man, and still be with him in the open, she pushed me off a cliff herself. Before I died, she clicked over in heels and sneered at the blood. Ethan Hayes, you broke loser. You reek of poverty. You think you deserve to be my husband? Sebastian will always be my first choice. Anyone else is just a backup. When I opened my eyes, I was back on the day Mrs. Whitmore asked what I wanted. This time, I dropped the fantasy and did not even look at Chloe. I want cash plus a ticket to the States. Money, Ethan Hayes? Are you playing hard to get with me? Chloe's shrill voice shattered the lavish quiet of the Whitmore villa. She sat on a European leather sofa, arms crossed. Those eyes, once full of me, now held only open contempt and mockery. She had been back with the Whitmores for less than 3 days. The cheap cotton dress I had scrimped to buy her was already replaced by a Chanel couture suit. The diamond necklace blazing at her throat silently drew the class line between us. Mrs. Whitmore sat at the head seat. She rolled red sandalwood prayer beads in her hand. Her cloudy but shrewd eyes looked me up and down, as if pricing a defective item's last bit of value. Mr. Hayes, Chloe can be blunt. Please don't mind. A man in a subtly patterned white suit stepped out from behind Chloe. He was Sebastian Kingsley, a notorious rich heir in the capital. He sat down beside Chloe. Then, as if it were natural, he took her hand. Chloe did not pull away. Instead, her ears reddened and she leaned closer. Sebastian looked at me, his lips curved in a gentle-looking, vicious smile. Mr. Hayes saved Chloe. It's only fair he wants compensation. I just wonder about this payout. How big your appetite really is. He hit the word appetite hard. His eyes were all smug charity and disdain. I calmly looked at the three of them. The weightless fall and bone-shattering pain from my last life still seemed lodged in my blood and bones. And Chloe's words from the cliff, how could a lowly poor man deserve to be my husband, still rang in my ears. I pulled back from the memory and looked past Sebastian, straight at Mrs. Whitmore. I want 10 million. My voice did not waver at all. It was like I was talking about the weather. The living room went dead silent. Then Chloe let out a wildly exaggerated sneer. 10 million? Ethan Hayes, are you insane? She shot to her feet and pointed at my nose. You work 4 jobs a day. Waiting tables, hauling bricks on construction sites. How much can you scrape together in a month? Now you open your mouth and ask for 10 million? You think Whitmore money grows on trees? Disgust almost spilled from her eyes. I knew it. You never saved me out of kindness. You're a total parasite. You pretended to be too noble to stay, just so you could name an insane price, right? Sebastian quickly grabbed Chloe's wrist. He gently patted her back to calm her. Chloe, don't get worked up. He's not worth it. Then he turned to me. He frowned, faking deep disappointment. Mr. Hayes, I thought you were an honest man. I never thought you'd be this greedy. 10 million is nothing to the Whitmores. But for someone from the bottom like you, getting that much money overnight could make you lose your head and go down the wrong road. Take my advice. Keep your feet on the ground. Ask for 80 or 100 grand and start a small business. Wouldn't that be better? Every word sounded like he cared about me. Every word called me greedy, hopeless trash. I stared at Sebastian's phony face. I suddenly saw how pitifully stupid I had been. I actually lost to a cheap, fake nice snake. I ignored Sebastian's bait. I only looked at Mrs. Whitmore. Mrs. Whitmore is your heiress's life. Not even worth 10 million. Mrs. Whitmore's hand stilled on the beads. A dark look flashed through her cloudy eyes. The Whitmores were one of Stonebridge's top families. If word got out that their heiress's savior was paid off with pocket change, how could the Whitmores show their faces? Fine. 10 million. I'll pay it. Mrs. Whitmore's voice was hoarse, but it carried absolute authority. Grandma. Chloe panicked and stomped her foot. How can you agree to his outrageous demand? A broke loser like him will just blow it. Mrs. Whitmore raised a hand and cut Chloe off. She stared at me, her tone ice cold. Ethan Hayes, I can give you 10 million. But if you take it, you sign an NDA. From now on, you never mention saving Chloe to anyone. And above all, never show your face to Chloe or any Whitmore again. Can you do that? I nodded without hesitation. Of course. I want it more than you do. No more crossing paths in this life. Chloe froze. She clearly hadn't expected me to agree so fast, without even a trace of longing. Deep down, I was supposed to wag my tail like a dog, begging and clinging to her. Ethan Hayes dropped the act. You think money can wash that gutter stink off you? Let me tell you, even with 10 million, you're still a lowly poor man to me. Sebastian cut in right on cue, smugness in his voice. Mr. Hayes, Chloe may be blunt, but she's right. Different worlds shouldn't mix. Take the money and crawl back to your swamp. I watched their tag team routine. I felt nothing. I almost laughed. When does the money hit my account? I ignored their insults and looked at Mrs. Whitmore. I'll have accounting prepare a check. Mrs. Whitmore said coldly. Wire transfer. No checks. My tone was firm. A check could be frozen. I would not give them any leverage over me. Mrs. Whitmore gave me a long look, then finally nodded. Fine. Tomorrow afternoon. Bring your ID. Come to Whitmore Group to sign the agreement. I turned and headed for the door without a pause. See you tomorrow. Once the money hits, I'm gone. I wish Miss Whitmore and Mr. Kingsley a lifetime of bliss. The next afternoon, I showed up on time at Whitmore Group's legal department. The agreement's terms were brutal. They nearly stripped me of the right to even say Chloe's name. I barely looked at it. I signed the last page and pressed my thumbprint. Ding. My phone buzzed with a bank text. 10 million had landed in my account. I stared at that long string of numbers and let out a long breath. From that moment on, I was truly free. I walked out of Whitmore Group's tower. I took a cab back to my cramped, dark basement room. This place held all my effort and pain from my last life. The corner still held scrap cardboard I'd collected to buy Chloe supplements. On the table sat a cheap glass with a chipped rim. I had pawned the only old watch my father left me to buy her cold medicine. The stall owner threw the glass in. In my last life, when Chloe went back to the Whitmores, she took nothing. Except that glass. With red eyes, she said it proved we had suffered together. But later, I learned she took it home, only to prove to Sebastian how brutally she had suffered among the poor, so he would pity her. Later, right in front of me, Sebastian casually smashed that glass to pieces. I picked up the glass and walked to the trash can. I let go. Crack. Glass shattered everywhere. Trash belonged in the trash. Just then, someone shoved open the rickety iron door. Chloe stood at the door, pinching her nose in disgust. Sebastian followed, holding a spotless white handkerchief, fanning himself theatrically. Ethan Hayes, you really are hiding in this filthy dump. Chloe's heels clicked on the pitted concrete floor, the sound sharp and grating. This stink is worse than a sewer. It makes me sick. Sebastian frowned slightly, his voice dripping with superiority. Chloe, I told you not to come here. One more second in this dump and you'll catch something. I kept packing my few ragged clothes without looking up. To what do I owe the honor, Miss Whitmore? Our deal is done. Chloe stepped in and scanned the tiny room. Then she saw the glass shards in the trash. Her face changed at once. Ethan Hayes, you broke that glass? She pointed at the trash, her voice sharp enough to sting. I stuffed my clothes into the worn canvas bag and zipped it up. Just a crappy glass. Took up space, so I tossed it. What do you know? That was... Chloe tried to snap back, then suddenly froze. She glanced at Sebastian beside her. Then she forced the rest back down. She could not show Sebastian any attachment to the past. Sebastian caught the shift in Chloe at once. He stepped up and nudged the glass shards with his toe. A mocking smile curled on his lips. Mr. Hayes, Chloe is sentimental. Even trash can mean something to her. How could you smash it like that? That was so thoughtless. He sighed and pulled $100 bill from his wallet. Then he tossed it at my feet like I was a beggar. You can buy a basket of junk like that for $100. I'll cover it for Chloe. Quit making that corpse face. The flimsy bill landed on my canvas bag. I stopped what I was doing. Slowly, I straightened and gave Sebastian an icy stare. Mr. Kingsley, your money is filthy. It makes me sick. Sebastian's face darkened. Ethan Hayes, don't push your luck. You think 10 million puts you on my level? To me, you're still a bug begging for scraps. Chloe immediately stepped in front of Sebastian and glared at me. Ethan Hayes, what is wrong with you? Sebastian kindly gave you money, and you dare insult him? Pick it up and apologize to Sebastian. Now. She sided with him like it was natural, just like in my last life. I let out a cold laugh. Then I lifted my foot and stepped on the $100 bill. I ground it under my soul. Apologize? Does he deserve it, Chloe Whitmore? Do you really think the world revolves around you? I used to spoil you because I was blind. Now, to me, you're worth less than the shards in that trash. Chloe's eyes flew wide, disbelief all over her face. She could not accept that Ethan, who once obeyed her every word, would dare speak to her like this. You dare talk to me like that? She shook with rage and raised her hand to slap me. I grabbed her wrist so hard she cried out. Miss Whitmore, drop that superior act. I flung her hand away. Take your good dog and get out of my place. Or I'll call the cops and report you for trespassing. Sebastian rushed over and caught Chloe. He glared at me viciously. Ethan Hayes, just you wait. You cross me in Stonebridge, and I have 100 ways to make you wish you were dead. I picked up my canvas bag and met his eyes without fear. Anytime, if you've got what it takes. I strode out of the rental and left them behind. Ethan Hayes, when did you get so cruel? You're impossible. Chloe's furious voice rang out behind me. I did not even look back. After leaving the rental, I went straight to a budget hotel near the airport. My flight was in 6 days. Until then, I just had to wait quietly. But the Whitmores clearly would not let me leave that easily. On the third evening, someone pounded on my door. 2 bodyguards in black suits stood outside. They were holding a cheap suit. Mr. Hayes, Mrs. Whitmore has orders. You must attend the Whitmore thank you gala tonight. The bodyguard's tone was hard. There was no room to argue. I frowned. The agreement is signed, and I have the money. I have no duty to attend any thank you gala. The bodyguard sneered. Mrs. Whitmore said, if you don't go, she has plenty of ways to shut down your old construction company. I hear the foreman there used to look out for you. My eyes turned cold. Mrs. Whitmore was using innocent people to threaten me. In my last life, when I was at my lowest, that foreman had lent me a few $100. I might be cold-blooded, but I would not drag in someone who helped me. Fine, I'll go. I took the suit and changed right in front of them. The suit was clearly a size too small, and the fabric was rough. I looked like a ridiculous clown in it. The Whitmores wanted me humiliated at the banquet, all to make Sebastian look superior. At 8 that night, the bodyguards half-escorted me into the ballroom of Stonebridge's most luxurious hotel. The gilded hall glittered with perfume, gowns, and clinking glasses. The second I stepped in, everyone stared. Who's that? He looks like a bum. How did he get in? I heard he saved Miss Whitmore. Talk about punching above his weight. Has he seen himself? Exactly. Next to Mr. Kingsley. They're worlds apart. Their cruel whispers hit my ears loud and clear. Expressionless, I sat on a sofa in the corner. I picked up a glass of water. Soon, a stir ran through the crowd. Chloe walked in on Sebastian's arm, surrounded by fawning guests. Chloe wore an ice blue couture gown. She looked breathtaking. Sebastian wore a perfectly tailored white tux. A priceless sapphire brooch gleamed on his chest. Together, they did look like a perfect pair. On stage, Mrs. Whitmore beamed at the guests. Thank you all for coming to my granddaughter Chloe's gala. Chloe was missing for days. Thanks to Sebastian Kingsley's help, she came home safe. Sebastian is loyal and kind. The Whitmores are deeply grateful. From the corner, I listened to Mrs. Whitmore twist the truth and almost laughed out loud. I had risked my life to save Chloe from the kidnappers, but from her mouth all the credit went to Sebastian. And I, her real savior, did not even deserve a mention. Just then, Sebastian came straight over with 2 glasses of red wine. He wore a fake smile and spoke at just the right volume, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Mr. Hayes, sitting here alone must be boring. Come on, let me toast you. He held 1 glass out to me. I didn't take it. I don't drink. A vicious look flashed in Sebastian's eyes, but he kept his innocent act. Mr. Hayes, are you trying to embarrass me? Or are you still mad about what happened at your rental? I know you're jealous Chloe chose me, but love can't be forced. He raised his voice on purpose. Guests stopped talking and looked over. You're nothing. Why would I be jealous of you? I stared at him coldly. Sebastian suddenly stepped closer. Then he tripped. The wine in his hand flew straight onto his own chest. Ah! Sebastian cried out dramatically and fell backward. Dark red wine soaked his expensive white shirt. The room erupted. Chloe shoved through the crowd like a madwoman. Sebastian, are you okay? She helped him up, frantically wiping him with tissues. With red eyes and a shaky voice, Sebastian looked deeply wronged. Chloe, I'm fine. Mr. Hayes is probably just upset. He didn't mean to push me. That fake victim line set Chloe off. Chloe whipped around and glared at me, eyes blazing. She rushed up in heels and swung at my face. I tilted my head and dodged the slap with ease. Ethan Hayes, you lowlife broke loser. Chloe pointed at me, her furious shriek almost splitting my ears. Sebastian kindly offered you a toast, and you dared push him? Get on your knees and apologize to Sebastian or you're done. The guests started blaming me too. What an uncivilized savage. Why would the Whitmores invite gutter trash like him? Kneel and apologize. Stop offending our eyes. I stood there coldly watching these self-styled elites. What if I refuse? Refuse? Ethan Hayes, have you forgotten what you are? Chloe's eyes held pure disgust, as if she were looking at a pile of human waste. Her chest heaved, and the finger pointed at me trembled. You think that 10 million lets you throw your weight around here? I'm telling you, crushing you here is easier than crushing an ant. Sebastian slumped in Chloe's arms, still keeping up his sickening act. He gently tugged at Chloe's dress. His voice was so weak he sounded ready to faint. Chloe, let it go. Mr. Hayes probably feels inferior, coming from nothing, so he lashed out like this. I'll just change. Don't let me ruin everyone's night. The more he said it, the more Chloe felt he was wronged, and the more she hated me. No, today he gets on his knees, bows to the floor, and apologizes. Then Mrs. Whitmore came over, flanked by bodyguards. Her face was livid, her sandalwood beads creaking in her fist. Ethan Hayes, the Whitmores gave you respect. Don't spit on it. Her voice was quiet, but full of command. If you don't kneel and bow to settle this today, I can have your 10 million frozen anytime. And I'll make sure you can't survive in Stonebridge or anywhere in the country. The moment she finished, a dozen burly bodyguards in black closed in. They pinned me tightly in the corner. The guests backed away, afraid of getting blood on them, yet their eyes gleamed, eager for the show. The pressure peaked. Everyone saw me as a broke nobody from the gutter, who could only kneel and beg before Whitmore power. I looked at Chloe's smug face, at the venom Sebastian couldn't hide in his eyes, and at Mrs. Whitmore's superior pose. Then I laughed. My laugh cut sharply through the dead-silent ballroom. What are you laughing at? Are you crazy? Chloe frowned, my laugh clearly unnerving her. I stopped smiling and slowly pulled out my phone. I'm laughing at you so-called smart elites, getting played like fools by a third-rate actor. As I spoke, I opened an app on my phone. In my last life, to keep Foreman from docking my pay, I taught myself a little hacking. Bored in the corner, I hacked into the hotel security system. Chloe Whitmore, open your eyes and see who's really shameless. I hit enter. The giant LED screen in the center of the ballroom flickered. The screen that had been playing a Whitmore Group promo switched to clear security footage. It clearly showed everything that had just happened. Sebastian walked toward me with the glass. As he came close, I even stepped back, both hands still in my pockets. I never touched him at all. Sebastian had deliberately tripped over his own feet, then dumped the full glass of wine right onto his own chest. Then he threw himself back to finish that lousy fake fall. The whole thing played from every angle with no blind spots. Even the sly smile on his lips before he fell was blown up in crystal clear detail. The room went so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone stared frozen at the big screen. Their faces were priceless. The guests who had just yelled for me to kneel now looked choked silent, unable to say a word. I slid my phone back into my pocket and crossed my arms. With a half smile, I looked at Sebastian, pale as a ghost. Miss Whitmore, your good dog's acting isn't exactly up to par. You set me up. Sebastian's pitiful face twisted instantly. His voice went shrill, like a cat with its tail stepped on. He shoved Chloe away, pointed at the screen, and yelled, "That video is fake. You forged it." The footage on the big screen kept looping. Each replay was like a loud slap across Sebastian's face. The guests began whispering. Their looks shifted from pity to scorn and mockery. So he tripped himself. Shame he didn't go win an Oscar. A Kingsley heir used such a dirty trick to frame an ordinary guy? How embarrassing. The Whitmores really backed the wrong guy. What a piece of work. Those whispers stabbed into Chloe's ears like needles. Her face was livid, her body trembling. She was mortified. But her first instinct still wasn't to apologize to me. Ethan Hayes, how can you be this scheming? You recorded it in secret? Chloe whipped around and glared at me viciously. You just want to ruin Sebastian's name, don't you? People from the bottom like you are truly vicious. Watching her stay so stubbornly blind, I found it absurd. Chloe Whitmore. If you're not using your brain, donate it to someone who needs one. I grabbed a microphone from the table beside me. My voice carried through the speakers across the ballroom. He came at me first. He poured the wine on himself. I only showed the truth. How does that make me vicious? I swept a cold look over everyone there. So this is your high society, twisting black and white, and calling lies the truth? Mrs. Whitmore shook with rage, pointed at me, and cursed. Outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Security. Throw this arrogant bastard out. The dozen-plus bodyguards moved in again. I stood my ground without fear and stared coldly at Mrs. Whitmore. No need. I'll walk myself out. I already have the Whitmores 10 million. From now on, I, Ethan Hayes, am done with Chloe Whitmore. And the Whitmore family for good. I don't want to spend one more day in your sick little circle. I slammed the microphone onto the table. A harsh boom blasted out. I turned and strode toward the ballroom doors. Wherever I passed, the bodyguards were cowed by my presence and stepped aside on their own. Chloe watched my resolute back and suddenly felt a strange emptiness inside. It felt like something that once belonged to her was slipping completely out of her control. Without thinking, she took one step after me, but her pride forced her to stop. Ethan Hayes, if you walk out that door today, even if you crawl back begging, I won't look at you again. Chloe screamed behind me until her voice tore. I didn't look back. I didn't even break stride. As you wish. I pushed open the heavy ballroom doors and shut that toxic world behind me for good. The night wind brought a chill, but it left me clearer and freer than ever. Find out where that broke loser Ethan Hayes ran off to. Chloe Whitmore angrily swept every file off her desk. A month had passed since that farce of a thank you gala. For that whole month, Chloe felt her life was a disaster. Every morning when she woke up, no one brought her stomach-soothing porridge at the perfect warmth. Her pricey couture gowns in the walk-in closet never had matching accessories ready, because Ethan used to lay all of that out for her. When her stomach pain hit, she writhed in bed. When she called Sebastian, all he ever said was, "Drink some warm water. I'm still in a meeting." But Ethan used to run through pouring rain across half the city just to buy hot porridge from her favorite place. Chloe rubbed her throbbing temples. A strange irritation welled up inside her. She would not admit she had gotten used to Ethan waiting on her. She told herself the cheap help had suddenly quit, and she just had not adjusted yet. Worse, Sebastian was starting to show his true colors. More than once, on Sebastian's suit jacket, she caught the harsh smell of cheap perfume. When she confronted him, Sebastian just shoved her off impatiently and said she was being ridiculous. "Miss Whitmore, we found him." Her assistant opened the door nervously and handed over a file. "Ethan, he went to Bayport. And he used that 10 million to start a tech company. He's doing pretty well." Chloe snatched the file. She stared at the photo of Ethan in a suit, looking confident and sharp. In the photo, Ethan had sharp eyes and a calm, steady air. There was no trace of the poor, groveling loser he used to be. A fierce sense of losing control, mixed with jealousy, gripped Chloe's heart. How dare he live so well, living it up on our Whitmore money. Chloe said through gritted teeth, "Book me a flight to Bayport. Now, I want to see for myself what the hell he's up to." The next afternoon, Chloe, in 4-inch heels, showed up downstairs at my company, ready for war. She still had that smug heiress attitude. She ignored the front desk and barged into my office. I sat behind my wide desk, reading a project report. At the noise, I didn't even lift my eyes. "Ethan Hayes, you've got some nerve. Starting a company behind my back?" Chloe marched to the desk and slammed both hands on it. I calmly closed the report. I looked up at her coldly. "Miss Whitmore, barging into a private office can get you in legal trouble. Ethan Hayes, are you done acting out? Come back with me. I can forgive how rude you've been." "Forgive me? Chloe Whitmore, are you seriously delusional? I leaned back in my ergonomic executive chair. Hands folded. I looked at her like she was insane. Chloe choked, her face flushed. She stared at me, as if hunting for a crack in my act. But she found only cold mockery in my eyes. There was no trace of the old obsession she knew. Stop playing dumb. Chloe raised her voice to hide her panic. You ran off to Bayport and started a company just to get my attention. Didn't you? You think a suit can hide that poverty stink in your bones? Let me tell you, you'll always be gutter trash living off Whitmore charity. I quietly listened to her hysterical rant. A cruel smile tugged at my lips. In my last life, she used that same superior tone to grind me into the dirt. I stood and slowly walked around the desk to her. My height and the presence of someone used to being in charge forced Chloe to take a step back. Chloe Whitmore, do you think Sebastian will always be your first choice? I looked her in the eye and, word by word, repeated what she had said to me by the cliff in my last life, without changing a single word. While a lowly poor man like me is only fit to be your backup on call. Chloe froze like she'd been struck by lightning. Her eyes went wide, full of terror. She had only thought those words in the darkest corner of her mind. She had never said them to anyone. She couldn't understand it. How could I hit the dirtiest secret in her heart so dead on? You? How did you? Her lips trembled. She couldn't finish a sentence. I gave her no time to breathe. Every word cut deeper. You think you're some noble princess? You're just a selfish, ungrateful backstabber. You took everything I gave, then looked down on where I came from. You worshipped Sebastian's power and ignored what kind of man he was. Now, to me, you're worth less than a stray dog. Chloe's defenses finally shattered. She covered her ears and shook her head wildly. No, that's not true. You're lying. Sick of her ugly meltdown, I hit the intercom on my desk. Security, get up here and throw this crazy woman out of my office. In under 30 seconds, 2 burly guards rushed in. They grabbed Chloe by both arms. Let me go. Do you know who I am? I'm the Whitmore heiress. Chloe struggled with all her strength. Her polished face twisted with rage and fear. I sat back down and reopened the report. Throw her out, and never let trash like this into my company again. How dare you call me trash, Ethan Hayes? You'll regret this. Chloe fled back to Stonebridge in disgrace. But devastating news was waiting, enough to ruin the Whitmores. Sebastian was in deep trouble. He'd kept several high-end escorts. He was also accused of exploiting key Whitmore projects. It was large-scale money laundering and financial fraud. Then the whole thing blew up. Police caught Sebastian partying in an underground casino. The news rocked Stonebridge's business world. Within 10 minutes of opening, Whitmore Group stock hit limit down. Billions in value vanished. The shock overwhelmed Mrs. Whitmore. She suffered a brain hemorrhage and went to the ICU. She's still in a coma. Chloe panicked and rushed to the detention center to confront Sebastian. Behind the glass, Sebastian had dropped his old polished act. His face twisted, his eyes venomous as a snake. What are you doing here? Came to laugh at me? Sebastian spat viciously. Chloe sobbed and pounded the glass. Sebastian, why did you do this? Why did you lie to me? Why did you destroy the Whitmores? Sebastian burst out laughing until tears came. Fooled you? You were just stupid. You really thought I'd want damaged goods like you, somebody else's leftovers? If I hadn't wanted the Whitmore resources, you think I'd lower myself to sweet-talk an idiot who threw herself at me? Every word was a knife, stabbing into Chloe's heart. She slumped to the floor. Her whole world collapsed. Only then did she finally see Sebastian for who he was. In that pit of despair, Chloe couldn't stop thinking of me. She remembered the Ethan who worked 4 jobs a day, just to buy her one little cake. She remembered the Ethan who stayed by her bed all night when she was sick, too scared to even close his eyes. Regret ate through her insides like venom. In Bayport, it was late fall and rain was pouring. I had just finished a key business negotiation. I sat in the back of the Maybach, headed back to the hotel. The car had just left the garage when the driver slammed the brakes. Mr. Hayes, someone is kneeling in the rain ahead. They're blocking the road. I lowered the window and looked out coldly. In the downpour, Chloe knelt before the car, soaked like a drowned rat. Her once perfect hair stuck to her face. Her gown was caked with mud. The moment the window came down, she scrambled to the door. She clutched the window frame. Ethan. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Please, give me one more chance. Give you a chance? So you can push me off a cliff again? Holding a large black umbrella, I opened the door. I looked down at Chloe in the mud. Cold rain dripped from the umbrella ribs and hit her face. Chloe jerked her head up and stared at me in terror. Of course, she didn't know I had been reborn. To her, my words were a rusty saw. They slowly sawed into her soul, leaving her nowhere to hide. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Her teeth chattered as she tried to hide her terror. I savored her misery and despair. I felt no pity. All I felt was the thrill of revenge. Fine. All you need to know is this. You're worth less than a puddle of sludge. Chloe broke down sobbing. She threw herself at me. She clung to my leg, smearing mud on my custom suit pants. Ethan, I really regret it. Sebastian is a monster. He lied to me and ruined the Whitmores. Grandma's in the hospital fighting for her life. The Whitmores are almost broke. Ethan, you're all I have left. She lifted her face, tears mixing with rain. She tried to stir even a shred of old feeling in me. Ethan, I'm pregnant. It's Sebastian's. But I'll get an abortion tomorrow if you'll take me back. From now on, I'll do whatever you say. I'll be your servant. Hearing her stoop that low made me sick. In my last life, she used that pregnancy as bait. To lure me to the cliff and push me off herself. My eyes hardened. I lifted my leg and kicked her away without mercy. Chloe screamed and crashed into a muddy puddle. Dirty water splashed everywhere. Chloe Whitmore, you're not even worth hating anymore. I looked down at her, my voice ice cold. Seeing you beg like this truly makes me sick. Get out of my sight. Get lost. My eyes hardened. I lifted my leg and kicked her away without mercy. Chloe screamed and slammed into the muddy puddle. Dirty water splashed up. I turned and got in. Without another look, I coldly told the driver to go. Yes, Mr. Hayes. On the other end, Miles sounded as efficient and calm as ever. The source is solid. The Whitmores are getting shut down everywhere. No bank in the country will touch them now. They're using an underground broker to reach an offshore shadow lender. They want to mortgage the family estate for a lifeline loan. A shadow lender? What's that estate worth? In normal times, at least 500 million. But the Whitmores need cash fast. And that lender strips people to the bone. I doubt they'll get more than a 200 million credit line. And the interest will be sky high. 200 million? They don't deserve that. Miles, listen. Use every connection we have. Find out now who they're talking to at that shadow lender. And get the exact time and place of the talks. I want to steal the deal. On the phone, Miles clearly froze. Even his breathing paused for a second. Mr. Hayes, steal the deal? We only have the 10 million you told us to set aside. That won't even get us to the table, let alone steal the deal. Who said I was throwing money at it? 10 million is enough. That 10 million isn't for buying their debt claim. It's to buy leverage enough to make that shadow lender drop the Whitmores. Then they'll choose us instead. Once you reach the decision maker, tell him this. We also have an asset to put up as collateral. We don't want his money. In fact, we'll do the opposite. We'll put up this 10 million as a deposit. In return, we buy the bad asset they'll get from the Whitmores. Tell him we're betting on the Whitmores going into liquidation. We want final title to that estate and we'll take all the risk. And we'll give him an extra 1% cut. The Maybach engine growled low and rolled forward without hesitation. The tires cut through puddles and splashed Chloe all over. In the rearview mirror, I watched that once lofty Stonebridge heiress. Now she sprawled on the ground like a beaten dog. Ethan, how am I supposed to live without you? Ethan. Chloe's desperate wail cut through the rain. It reached me from far behind. How will you live without me? That's your problem. What does it have to do with me? I closed the window. The thick glass shut out the noise completely. It also shut out Chloe's sickening sobs. They were outside my world forever. The cabin fell absolutely quiet again. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. He looked curious, but in the end, he asked nothing. He only turned the cabin heat up a little. I leaned back in the leather seat and closed my eyes. The boulder of 2 lifetimes on my chest hadn't shattered as I'd imagined. It had only cracked. Because I knew kicking Chloe away was only the start. The real revenge would be a grand funeral I directed myself. It was tailored for the Whitmores and the Kingsleys. And the curtain had only just risen. I ignored the muddy smear on my pant leg. Then I turned back to the call. Miles, you said the Whitmores are mortgaging the West Haven estate? I get it, Mr. Hayes. You're cutting them off at the root. That move is pure genius. The Whitmores think it's their lifeline. They don't know we've already soaked that straw in gasoline. Get it done. Remember, fast and clean. Leave no trace. 3 days later, I was in Hayes Group's top-floor CEO office. I stood before the massive floor-to-ceiling windows. Below me, the city traffic streamed by. Miles stood behind me, reporting respectfully. Mr. Hayes, everything went exactly as you expected. The shadow lender was happy to take our deal. Yesterday afternoon, the Whitmore rep got a fake loan intent letter. Then he walked out beaming. They still think the 300 million lifeline arrives by tomorrow at the latest. I hear Mrs. Whitmore is already on the best imported meds. With 24-hour care, they're barely keeping her alive. When will the hospital cut off treatment? Per the agreement, if the funds aren't in by noon tomorrow, the hospital stops all treatment, including the ventilator. Just then, someone knocked on the office door. My new assistant, Noah Reed, poked his head in. Mr. Hayes, downstairs, Miss Whitmore from Whitmore Group is back. She's demanding to see you. Security can barely hold her back. I walked behind my desk and pulled up the security feed. On screen, Chloe was wild-haired and disheveled. She no longer looked anything like a Stonebridge heiress. Like a madwoman, she clung to the company doors. She screamed herself hoarse at the people inside. Ethan, come out, you devil. Why are you doing this to my family? Grandma's dying. Give us the money back. I'm begging you. 2 tall guards held her by both arms. They tried to drag her away, but she stuck like gum on a shoe. She thrashed with all 4 limbs, making an ugly scene. I watched in silence, not a ripple inside. In my last life, when I was pushed off the cliff, she watched just as coldly. Now it was my turn. Mr. Hayes, should we handle it? Miles asked. I picked up the intercom and called security. Isn't she sick? Then send her where she belongs. Call the city psychiatric center. Say we have a manic patient here. She's posing a serious threat to public safety. I hung up and stopped watching that ridiculous farce on screen. 1 week later, in the VIP lounge at Bayport International Airport, I wore a sharp casual suit. Suitcase in hand, I stood by the huge floor-to-ceiling window. A large screen on the wall was playing financial news. Former Stonebridge giant Whitmore Group officially declared bankruptcy today. Its chairwoman, Mrs. Whitmore, had massive unpaid medical bills. Resuscitation failed, and she died 3 days ago. Chloe Whitmore is suspected of financial crimes and mental instability. She has been committed to the city psychiatric center. Sebastian Kingsley, the Kingsley heir, was sentenced to 15 years on multiple counts. I watched those familiar names on the screen. I felt nothing. If anything, I found it boring. Your coffee, Mr. Hayes. My new assistant, Noah Reed, respectfully handed me an Americano. Everything is set at the New York office. Several Wall Street firms are very interested in our new project. I took the coffee and sipped it. Perfect. My past life revenge was done. This life had only just begun. Passengers traveling to New York, your flight is now boarding. The clear announcement rang out. I set down my coffee and grabbed my suitcase. Let's go, Noah. I strode toward the gate. Sunlight fell over me, warm and bright. Just as I was about to step onto the jet bridge, a phone in my pocket, silent for so long, suddenly buzzed. It was the one I had kept hidden, an old phone from my past life. It held contacts that should no longer exist in this world. I stopped and took it out. On the screen, an unnamed number burned into my bones, kept flashing. The owner of that number had died 3 years ago, in that carefully planned plane crash. I stared at the number. All the blood in my body seemed to freeze solid in that instant.